My name is Jason Porter, and I'm kind of new to the team. So if you don't know, I lead the front end team here. And today we are talking about the new graph UX. What is the purpose of this work? Provide users with a graph that is both beautiful and useful. And that's as simple as it is broad, but that really is the balance that we kind of have to strike here. We want it to be beautiful and engaging and intuitive, but also useful and actually help users when they're trying to view or debug their workflows. So one question I think is important to ask is why a graph at all? And it's true that graphs provide like this intuitive way to understand complex data. And our brains are like absolutely wired to process visual information. Like I was reading one thing that said like 65% of your brain is related to processing and mapping in your mind visual things. So we kind of already have this feature in our biology. Let's use that. So at first, we just had a few things we wanted to change. One, we wanted to show the actual path of these workflows by being able to look inside of nested nodes. We also wanted to leverage color to simplify the state of the workflow. And then, just small things like human-friendly naming. And so even with those small things, you can start seeing a pretty substantial difference. So above, we have our previous graph experience. And this is the same, these represent the exact same workflow. Although I forget which workflow it is, but these are the same workflow. And they both failed. But on the top one, it's really pretty unclear why it failed. Whereas on the bottom one, our new experience, we have this legend. You can quickly see, oh, this one was aborted. So the workflow kind of paused there. And so already we're kind of equipping our users with these subtle cues that give them tons of information really quickly. And it also helps with the debugging experience. This is a example of a failed workflow. And again, we don't really see much about what happened. We don't understand why it failed, how it failed. But on the new experience, we get the exact same workflow, the exact same execution. We get tons more information. And so we can see, for example, this red box around this nested workflow. These boxes represent nested workflows that we can now look inside, or sub workflows actually. And now we can also tell that this second node is purple and it was aborted. And we can kind of put it together in our heads like, oh, I see, T1 failed in this workflow, which caused this node to fail. And so now it very quickly makes sense exactly what happened. So we think this is really going to help users with the debugging use case, just like, okay, I see exactly what is failing. And we do show all this information in other places in the site, but this is kind of a more intuitive feel for that same data. And so moving right along to keep time, I have a few simple examples. I'm just going to load up one of our demo sites, but if you pull down the latest, this is included. So here's a really simple workflow. It looks like it's exceeded, great. And so we can go here and it just looks beautiful. It's like, okay, yeah. And now we have human readable names. We can tell exactly what these nodes represent. If we go back, we can see another nested case, which is branches. So in this branch case, we see that there's actually, branches that occurred. And in this particular case, there is a nested branch. On this current build, we only show nesting down to 1 depth, but we're going to touch on that more later. We plan to go fully deep in the near future. And then finally, this is actually a good question. How do we handle monsters? Like really, really big graphs. And it turns out that it handles it just fine. So this workflow is pretty, lots of things going on here. And when we graph this, we do see a lot all at once. And so these boxes, once again, represent sub workflows that we can now look inside. And this graph has features like zooming, panning, things that kind of help you if you want to like see with higher fidelity kind of what's happening. Yeah, and so I'm going to go back to this. The cool thing about this is it's just a start. This is like V, not even 1, V 0.1. We have a lot more things in the pipes. Up next, we're going to start doing fully supported nested graphs. We have a path forward of how we're going to kind of handle the idea of being able to kind of infinitely zoom into a graph that might be nested upon nested upon nested. We're also exploring ideas of how to display more useful data. Like one example idea, I'm not committing to this, but one example idea is showing on the edges, like what is the data that we sent. We can have like a hover perhaps. And then one really cool thing, and this is out throughout the entire site, we're doing kind of an overhaul, and we're going to start adding these graphs everywhere to kind of give users that quick read. There'll be static graphs, but like, for example, imagine when you go to the workflow page, seeing all your versions, and instantly you see a static graph to kind of know the differences between workflow versions and kind of instantly kind of get that read of what these different graphs look like. So it's actually pretty exciting. I think this is going to be a really, really cool feature to use now, and especially in the future. So that's all I got. Any questions?
That's really awesome. I think the graphs look so much more better and usable, I think. So thank you, Jason. We probably should do a UX deep dive, because I think what Jason's really, as he said, he's implemented like V0.1. There's a huge UX around entire FlyteConsole. And our team is, and so our team, when I say it's like the Union AI team, which is backing Flyte, is committed to building the most beautiful user experience in open source that you can get in the pipelining system.